Now, what is actually meant by time series? There are various definitions given by different statisticians. So, according to Kenny, a set of data depending on time. So, any information which we are collecting, if the information is depends on time, then it is called as a time series. And according to Croston and Cowden, a time series consists of data arranged in chronological order. So friends, what is this chronological order? Chronological order in the sense we have to write down the data in a sequential order. In a sequential order means suppose either it is in increasing order or it is in the decreasing order. So if you take the data as per this time and x, suppose this t stands for time and x stands for the underlying variable. So the first time is taken as t1, the second as per this t1, so there is the value of variable is x1. So likewise, if these are the last value and the nth time period is tn and the value of this variable x is xn. So if you write down the data as per this, that means there are two columns. One column is related with time and the second column which is related with the underlying variable. And this t should be in increasing order. So either it is in increasing order or it is in decreasing order. So that means that should be taken in a sequential order. If you take the data as per the time and if you write down the data in increasing or decreasing order, then that is known as a time series. So a time series consists of data arranged in chronological order. So this definition is given by Croxton and Cowden. And suppose an ordered sequence of values of a variable at equally spaced time interval, this is also known as a time series. So that means this t should be, the time interval should be equal. So if you see this example, so in this example the first row is related with the time and this time is given as 2010. So the time is this time is given. So if you start this time with 2010, 2011, 2012, so yearly we are collecting the data. So this is equally spaced, means the difference between two time periods is same. So 2010, next is 2011. And the production is given in tons. So 10 tons, 12 tons production are given. So the first variable is time and the second variable is the underlying variable. Then we can say that this is nothing but a the data which is shown in the table is a time series data. So why this is time series data? Because in this series we are getting two values. So one is a time and the second one is a the underlying variable, that is nothing but the production. So can you getting my point? So this is all about the definition of time series. So these are different definitions given by different statisticians. Then what is analysis of time series? So analysis of time series is nothing but what? So whenever the data, the underlying data is aggregated by time, so that means we will the underlying data is divided, is classified as per the time period. We can see that there will be a variation in the values of variable from time to time. So that means suppose if the data is taken and if the data is divided according to time period, so that means we are segregating the relating variable as per the time period, then we can observe that the data does not remains the same. It differs from time to time. So therefore, there is a need of analysis of time series. So again, the decomposition or separation of time series values into its components, so that is also called as a time series. So that means according to factors, according to those factors which are influencing to differ the time series data. So what are those components? So we can decompose this, we can separate these components, so which are affecting on the time series. So that is also known as a time series data. So this data, if you see this data, so this data is taken from Wikipedia, and this is India COVID cases. So what are the number of COVID cases? The data is taken in the month of June. So 1st June in 2020, the total number of COVID cases are 8171. So in 2nd June, so 2909. So in the 3rd June, the value is 9304. That means we are taking the data according to day wise. So this is equally time spaced, and these are nothing but the number of COVID cases. So according to day wise. So therefore this data is known as a time series data. Why this data is known as a time series data? Because the first column is related with time and the second column is related with the variable. And in this case, my variable is COVID cases in India and my time period is day wise. So time may be anything. So in my last lecture, I have elaborated that time may be second, time may be minute, time may be week, time may be month, or time may be year. So we can take the values according to time period. So keeping all these things in mind, we need to do the analysis of time series, because once we analyze the data, so that will give us some sort of information related with the underlying variable. So what is the need of this analysis? Because we need to identify or determine the various forces or influences whose interaction produces the variation in the time series. So why the data of time series varies? So there are underlying variables, underlying forces which are influencing on the time period. So what are those? First we need to identify them, or we need to determine those forces. And once we identify this, so the first step is of identification. And once we identify this, then we have to isolate them, study them, analyze them, and measure them independently, keeping all other things are constant. So therefore, this is the need, because there are some forces which are influencing on the time series. We need to identify them, we need to analyze, we need to isolate them, we need to study them, and analyze and measure them independently. So keeping these things in mind, so this is nothing but the need of analysis of time series data. So what are the uses of this time series data? So this analysis is useful for the government, business persons, NGOs, banks, private organizations, for understanding the past behavior of the phenomenon. Suppose there is a business person, he needs to know what are the sales, what are the income, what are the expenditure, or what is the production of his commodity, or whatever he is manufacturing. So what is my past behavior of sales? If my underlying variable, if I take this as sales, then what is the past behavior of my sales? So once I know this past behavior, then I can plan for the future. So that means this is one use of. So the first use is to study the past behavior of the phenomenon. The second use is the planning for future operations. So for future operations, we can plan this. So that means once I know what is my past behavior of the data, so I can plan for the future. So that suppose if I know what is the actual data and the expected data, then I can analyze why there is a difference between the actual data and the expected data. Suppose if my sales in the month of January is 10 lakh and I am expecting that it should be 11 lakh, so why there is a difference of 1 lakh? So that needs to understand, so that needs to analyze, and why this difference occurs. So what are the reasons behind this difference? So that is again, this is the one more use of analysis of time series data. So we need to fit a model and predict or estimate or forecast the behavior. So this is one more use of analysis of data. And there is one more use, that we need to compare the different time series data. So there are different time series data. We can compare these time series data, and according to we can make conclusion about the time series data. So these are some uses of analysis of time series data. In the next lecture, we will discuss about what are the applications of time series data, and then we can discuss what are the components of time series data. So that means in this video, I have discussed the definition,